Welcome everyone to Into the Cypher State, the premier public podcast of Galactica Network. Every week we tend to discuss the hottest topics in our space with our wonderful little line of guests here, and then open the floor to you, our listeners, to discuss all these incredible topics. My handle is citizen42.gala within the Cypher State, in fact, but you can all call me Dave. I'm joined today by my fantastic co-host, my regular co-host, Cosmos Huss. We've also got a couple of other speakers who are going to be joining us today, one of which is already on stage. So Vikram, maybe you could start off by introducing yourself.
Hey guys, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk today. Thank you very much, Cosmos host, to, we have time difference. I am in Dubai and most of, the podcast that Cosmos hosts arranges is in US time zone, but he has been consistent. And I'm so glad that we were finally able to, meet. And thank you very much, Galactica and Dave from Galactica to bring me in today. I am Vikram, co-founder at Hypersign Protocol. And yeah, Hypersign is a DID infrastructure for uh, Web3. And I think we are the only DID that supports multiple layer 1 blockchain. So if someone is looking into identity and decentralized identifiers, probably I can help them. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful, man. It's really good to meet you, Vikram. And that kind of protocol is something that aligns with us greatly. So Jay, if you could just quickly introduce yourself, and then maybe GC after that.
Hey, everyone, Cosmos Haas here. I've been in crypto shortly after COVID started. I'm a really big fan of Cosmos technology and essentially want to be doing this space the rest of my life. So right now I'm kind of on a little bit of a hiatus on vacation, but still, as you can tell, I'm still plugged into the Cypher state, so to speak. So I'm excited to always learn and grow and meet new people, collaborate, and be early. Like I think we're still extremely early in this space, and it's going to be really cool to see how it pans out over the next decade. I know in a lot of minds that seems like a long time, but in technology time, it's really not that long. So it's exciting to be here, and looking forward to today's conversations.
Hell yeah, man. It's a very long-term mindset you've got to have in this kind of space, at least when you're not just talking about the investment side of things. Wonderful. So we also have another speaker up at the moment, GC. Jay recommended you, my friend, so just give yourself a bit of an introduction. Love to speak to you, man.
Hey guys, so I'm Cosmos Haas's friend, mostly. No, but honestly, so I've been building in the space for like 4 years now as a developer, consultant, part-time or full-time. And now I started my own consulting firm, Athena Consulting, and we provide blockchain solutions to different startups. And we just recently got a grant from basically the Atom Accelerator DAO to build a repo and website full of examples for customizing smart contracts, basically to onboard new developers into space. And also I met Vikram in Dubai. I don't know if you remember me when we met in Coffee with Crypto, Vikram. So yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, bro. I have to see you in person to remember you. I might not remember your Twitter handle, but for sure, if maybe we should set up a call.
Fantastic, guys. I'm really glad you're already all acquainted. So what we're going to do, we're just going to, if we can just ask our wonderful audience here, if you could just dive into the comments of this space before we start. If you could give us a like, a retweet, maybe a comment, that'd be wonderful. If you have any questions, just give us a comment in there. You will have a chance to come up to the stage if you wish to, just a bit later in the stage, just a bit later in the space. But for now, if you could just add any questions you have in the comments, and we'll read them. And we will get on with the space itself. So I would really like to start off today, guys, with pretty much the biggest news of the week that I could find, which is the passing of markets in crypto assets. So, for anyone who's not aware, this is shortened MiCA. It's a licensing regime in Europe. It's just passed the vote in the European Parliament. So, this thing has been really going since it was kind of finalized in the summer last year. But it's just passed the vote now through the Parliament, and it will actually come into force in 2024. Basically, what this means is that, as I say, at some point in 2024, Europe will essentially have a defined regulatory landscape, which will be the first of its kind, the first in the world to have like a real defined landscape. So what do you guys think of this? Do you think that this kind of legislation can be maybe copied in other countries? Do you think it's not good legislation? Have any of you even heard of MiCA? What do we think? Maybe we can start with Hoss, and then we'll go on to everyone else.
So I'm gonna have to defer that because, to be honest with you, I didn't get to see all the wording of MiCA yet. But I mean, any sort of legislation that's not too abrasive or stunts innovation, I'm always for it, because we do need some sort of guidelines. So, anything that's in a positive light, I'm good for it. But if anyone has read MiCA or knows more about it, I would like for them to speak before I do.
I mean, I have a high level idea. Uh, I think the regulation, uh, which EU has been talking about this for a long time. So definitely lot of points in terms of regulating cryptocurrency, but one point which is not that great when I was just going through the summary is for the stable coins. I think they still don't have clarity on that, or they are not aligned with the stablecoin, uh, issuance. So it is going to impact quite heavily, at least in the EU market, because most of the fundraise in 2021 happened via stablecoins and not Ethereum and any of those Bitcoin, for example. So I think definitely regulation is amazing. India would be the forefront, I think, in adopting probably the regulation if it comes in. So it's a good start. But on the other hand, if they have heavier, laws, then maybe people will not be able to. I don't know. I just saw like mixed opinion from community about MiCA.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, Vikram. To be honest, it isn't perfect legislation. I don't think anyone would even ever would argue that it was. And I agree, actually, that on the stablecoin point, I think it may have been left intentionally murky. It's much like how Americans are regulating stablecoins. Well, not exactly like it. Americans are much more hostile to this kind of thing, but it may have been intentionally murky. But yeah, I don't know if you also read that there was actually a second bill that was passed in the same session of the European Parliament. This one was called the Transfer of Funds Regulation. So we have MiCA and we have transfer of funds. So this one, it means that basically anything that's defined as a crypto asset service provider, so basically any centralized provider, so DeFi is excluded, anything decentralized, any centralized one must keep all identifying details of all crypto transactions processed in the EU block, but it also has no minimum transaction threshold. So I don't know if you're aware of the travel rule, FATF travel rule. That's the Financial Action Task Force, for anyone who's not aware. They ensure they don't track anything that's below $1,000, and that's quite harsh. But the EU is even worse. I mean, they're literally saying everything, even a penny, will be tracked with full identifying data. So it is quite a bit of a privacy hit as well. This transfer of funds rule. I don't know what you think of that.
Actually, just wanted to add on. I did not had this clarity about the MiCA and the transfer of fund law, but in India it's exactly same. Right now, every transaction, there is no threshold, and they are taxing 35% on every transaction, whether you are on positive. Yeah, right, Cosmos was this is what, like, very few people know this. Like 150, more than 150 startups migrated from India to Dubai in 2021. it This was like crazy. Almost every startup that raised through cryptocurrencies in 2021, they migrated to Dubai because of this upcoming laws. So in my opinion, whether it's MiCA or something else, but taxing this heavily is not right. It should be somewhere near to what other assets that we hold. I don't know if it makes sense,
No, it
Dave.
makes perfect sense. I mean, why should you have to pay? I mean, realistically, why should you have to pay tax on anything when you're transferring it? Like, let's say I was sending you some crypto. Like, why should you have to pay tax on that? Like, it's a gift or whatever. Now, I could see if you're selling it, you're converting it into your currency, then you could use that as like you're selling your personal property or whatnot. But that's absurd. Yeah, I never even heard of that. I know America, especially this current administration, they always try to like push the envelope with, oh, any transaction over $600 must be reported, or they do that with those third parties. I don't remember what they are, Cash Apps and all that, Venmos. They want to see all your transactions if it's $600 or more, which to me it's really not anyone's business. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it anyone's business. Do they have to report everything that they do at all times? Like these politicians and these lawmakers, they're supposed to, but that's not the case. So I don't think that should even be a thing. Now, if it's some highly absurd amount thing, yeah, I mean, potentially. But for them to have no microtransactions, you send your friend $10 and they want to have it reported, and there's some sort of trail. It's just too much. Like it's not. It never used to be like that. And then one of the curses with technology is it started to get to that point, and some of these countries more so than others kind of abuse that power. And 35%. I mean, I don't even know how anyone can make a living doing that. No shit. Why everyone would migrate from there? Like you can't do anything. It's like, and I know those type of lawmakers, like they're trying to tax you if you make anything, but then they're not trying to help you out if you lost anything. And then obviously with this market being so speculative and so brand new, that it's going to be up and down like a roller coaster. So if you have one bad year, like kind of we've been in since May, for the most part, it's been a really long drought, and no one's really making any money. So, are they going to give you money back? Or they just want your money when the market's doing good? So, they're just penalizing anyone for trying to be innovative and do anything, and it's just not the right way, not the right approach. And I think any country that sees that and kind of another man's lost, another man gains sort of ad is just going to have a really they're going to be heads and shoulders above the rest of the competition, because at some point, Dubai and all these other countries are going to be so heads and above, just heads and shoulders above everyone else. And then it may be too late for India, or if America wants to play like this, and people will just relocate, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, no doubt. I think there will be a transfer of of brain power, of people power, all of this, and a lot of social capital too. It will just transfer around the globe wherever it makes sense to go. GC, do you have an opinion on this one? It's absolutely fine to pass if you don't want to. So we've got the benefits of somewhat defined regulatory landscape and clarity at the cost of quite a bit of privacy. What do you think?
Yeah, so in my opinion, what I think is these regulations where you need to track every transaction is a bit like over the top, and they're doing it on purpose. But basically, because the reason is that when you have a blockchain, which is basically a transparent ledger, it's very easy to track all the transactions. So tracking them more and removing the anonymity that exists is just like a breach of privacy, because cash you can trace back as you can trace all blockchain transactions. You can basically trace blockchain transactions from 10 years ago till now. Each Bitcoin how it moved, or each whatever token how it moved. So this is just like a breach of privacy in some sort, where you're trying to get more control than they need. Because if somebody's laundering money, you'll know. If somebody's transferring more money, you'll know where it's getting out. So yeah, but they're preparing for the CBDCs basically, which I'm excited to see, honestly.
Yeah, it's a good take, man. So you're more of like an openness maxi, I suppose, like a open ledger, make sure it's everything's transparent on chain, and leave it at that kind of thing. Do you see a place
Yeah.
for privacy in this kind of thing, or just prefer just complete openness?
In the end, like no matter what you do, you'll always need to cash out to cash. Now, the interesting thing, what happens is when the government moves to completely CBDC, then that just pushes the Bitcoin narrative even more, where privacy is key. And again, it's never privacy; it's always pseudonymity, because you can always, like cash, you can always trace back transaction if you really work hard. And the FBI and the SEC and whatever already have all the tools, and they're building trees of all transactions, so they already know what's happening deep down. So we think we're really private, but we're not 100% private, but we're still better than what we already had in banks and whatever.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, man. So our stance, well, I'll say my stance. I work for Galactica, so obviously my position is biased. But the way we are doing it is we are trying to create a backbone, like some framework that allows people the absolute maximum amount of privacy that they can achieve, while maintaining the ability to be compliant from a regulatory standpoint. So that means being able to use ZK, our version of ZK proofs and ZK certificates, that kind of thing, essentially an analog of soulbound tokens, in such a way that you can prove to people on chain that you are who you say you are, that you're not involved in some kind of sanctioned entity, anything like that. But the trade-off to all this, of course, is that you have to be compliant. You have to be able to prove to a regulatory body, when requested, that a certain transaction is valid. So in this kind of situation, we have to be able to provide those details to those regulatory bodies. Now that's done through, in Galactica's case, through governance. So if the governance process deems that a certain transaction is fraudulent, then we can, like the governance body can vote in order to get those details to the relevant regulatory body in a decentralized and as minimal data carrying manner as possible. So that's kind of our method, but it goes along with pretty much what you were saying, GC, is that you are not anonymous in blockchain. You are pseudonymous. There are always some way, eventually, of figuring out who you are if you work hard enough on an open and public ledger. But like I say, with Galactica, we are building systems to prevent this in a public manner, while allowing this governance process to allow data to leave to regulatory bodies if the governance system allows it. So yeah, that's our way of doing it. So yeah, that's
regarding that project. By the way, did you ever hear of the blockchain? Are you doing it on Cosmos? That's right.
That's right. Yeah, we're building on Cosmos.
Yeah. So, did you ever hear about Concordium before?
Personally, no. I'm sure our tech team has.
Yeah. So it's another blockchain, it's not on Cosmos, but basically it's close to what you're saying, but it's a standalone blockchain. It has its own it's like its own blockchain, but basically it's very similar to what you did, and it's also a very interesting topic that I was very bullish on Concordium because of this regulatory part where federal agencies could basically give you a warrant and you could vote to basically release the information of certain user if it's fraudulent. And they got a lot of basically big players, basically companies and whatever, which do need this regulatory protection if you want to get on board. So yeah, just saying you're very similar to what they do, but there is similar on blockchain.
Yeah, that's something we're going to have to check out. I've taken a note down, and if the tech team don't know about it, which I'm sure they do, but we'll definitely make them aware. It sounds like another good project. So yeah, I would like to take this opportunity, guys, to just reset the space a little bit, because we've gone on the MiCA bill, and obviously it's an interesting development that it's passed through the European Parliament. But this thing won't actually take effect until 2024. So, we have the intention of regulatory clarity, but we don't actually have it as of yet. So we'll see how that pans out, and it'll be interesting. So I'll just reset the space quickly. I'll just remind anyone who's new into the space, if you could just type down into the comments. We've only got 3 likes and retweets on this space, so I'd really appreciate it if everyone just dropped down into there, give us a like, give us a retweet. Maybe ask a question in the comments. It'd be really, really appreciative, and we'll get this space out to more people. Can educate a few more. It'd be fantastic. So what I'd like to do then is maybe get back to the program in the form of that secondary topic we kind of just touched on, which is privacy. So obviously that's it's a primary focus of Galactica Network, and a personal hobby horse of mine. And I'm sure if many of our speakers today, in fact, knowing especially you, Vikram, I'm sure you've got plenty of opinions on this one. So we'll structure this around an article that I just recently read, which is called "Why Privacy Failed." I'm not going to go into detail about the article, to be honest, because it's pretty long, but I will break it down a little bit into a few key points. So the first point that they brought up to support the argument of why privacy failed is like pretty much a straw man argument, the common one. If you're not doing anything wrong, why do you care? Whatever, we'll continue. So the second is that user experiences for privacy solutions are orders of magnitude worse than even like the offerings that are generally available in Web3, which are pretty terrible in general. And finally, that the privacy solutions face strong resistance due to the like illicit activity and that kind of narratives that surround them, and blockchain technology in general. So I'll link the article itself. Actually, I'll find that in a minute, and I'll put that in the comments of this space. So I'll just ask. Maybe we'll start with Vikram on this one. What do you think of that particular narrative on why privacy failed?
I mean, so if I can understand those 2 points, one was that that people are misusing the privacy protocols, and hence there is government do not like it. Government anyways never liked it, never wanted privacy for uh, you know is that right, correct to understand the first point that you said, or if you could repeat
Yeah,
again?
I'd be happy to. No worries, man. So the very first point that I brought up was basically if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you care if you have privacy or not? So that was,
Yes.
I always find that a bit of a straw man argument, but that's the first point.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't agree to this. The point is that why should someone else know what I'm doing? Like, I mean, it's not about doing right or wrong. I I don't know if this is very interesting question. You know why? Because the country that I come from, there is no privacy. Like, I mean, there are ways to you can build privacy for yourself. Like, you can be ghost, without actually going through any of the government application and whatnot. But then on the other hand, if you just want to be, there is absolutely no privacy. For example, the biggest problems are like cameras across everywhere now. Although it is kept for they say that it is good for your own self because they stop crime and whatnot, but then on the other hand they keep watching you. So in my opinion, that I personally would like to be private. Like, I don't want others to know what I'm doing. Now it's on myself that it's their responsibility how to figure out whether I'm doing something right or wrong, like I'm breaking the rule or not. But just the fact that my every transaction, my every, I mean, whatever I do in the whole day is being now tracked, it just you know scares me out as a person, that I have no absolutely privacy. I mean, privacy should be fundamental right. It should not be the case that I am doing right or wrong. Like, even if I'm doing wrong, or even if I'm doing right, my things should be private. I don't know why. I don't even understand this point, like why people think that there shouldn't be privacy. I don't
Yeah,
know if it makes
I
sense
get
to
you.
you,
I do.
Dave.
I agree. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play a very short excerpt from Vitalik Buterin. Now, this is interesting to me because in this, he kind of maybe, at least initially in his career, he backed up this strawman argument. So let's just have a quick listen, and we'll see what he says just for a moment.
So I guess earlier in my life I subscribed more to the whole if you have nothing to hide, what do you need privacy for sort of thing. And like I was totally in favor of privacy for things like I don't know, buying weed and like circumventing stupid zoning regulations and all of that. But like basically I kind of believed that possibly outside of like censorship resistance applications, privacy didn't really just matter that much, and people should just be proud of what they do. I started realizing that there are some situations where there is a legitimate need to be able to do things without the thing you're doing simultaneously being this kind of performance that you're putting on for an entire world. And Robin Hanson wrote a really a good and huge book about this called The Elephant in the Brain a few months ago. And so like the idea of privacy as something that can kind of give people freedom to optimize for their own happiness instead of like constantly caring about how what they're doing looks in front of everyone else, I think is really valuable. I just realized that protecting your privacy along a lot of different dimensions is just something that a lot of people need, and probably everyone needs to at least some extent.
So there you go. That was Vitalik. Do you have any take on that?
I mean, he just articulated in the best possible way. um, uh, so all I mean, the point that he's trying to make is that as a human being, if you want to be free, you don't want someone to keep watching you, right? Like, if you are sleeping and there is this guy always watching you, you won't be able to sleep. You'll be like, what the fuck is happening to me? Like, that's called jail, right? I mean, sorry, I am so straightforward and I use not the right articulated words, but my point is that, see, okay, if there is an institutional application that you don't want bad actors to use it, that's a different thing. But a personal privacy, uh, you know there should be a line between these two. Like, you can implement any sort of regulations, verification, whatnot, for using certain things or behaving in certain way, which I do understand. Especially, I come from a very conservative country compared to the West, so I should be speaking the other way. But my point is that personal privacy should be there. Now, when it comes to engaging with other businesses and engaging in the right direction, there should be guidelines, and that guidelines could be implemented in whatever protocol or system possible. uh, but being watched the whole 24 hours, it just scares me out. I mean, we should definitely take some steps towards it. Like, I feel the whole concept of blockchain was that, from being watched completely to being certain level of privacy, like pseudo anonymity, right? uh, and when it comes to identity, it's like, they on internet, in web 2 design, the whole design is designed in a way that all your transaction, every step that you take on online in web, right, it's being tracked by the identity providers. So I think the whole fight is that, to certain level of privacy should be there should be a line between how much information someone can take from, without even asking, or they should at least ask that I am taking this information. So sorry, my English is not that good, but all I'm trying to say is that there should be a line between, somebody's personal life and their privacy, and uh, the way they are being, interacting with other businesses or other people. There could be guidelines to follow, and I think it is possible to build technology in a way that there is this thin line, and we don't cross that border, and we still do the business the way we have, we want to do, without breaking into someone's, private life or whatever.
I completely agree, personally. Hoss, GC, if you have a take on privacy, please, or anything that's already been said.
Well, I was just gonna say that was well said, and I think your English is actually really good. So don't sell yourself short there. Uh, but no, like I always side on the side of privacy. Like, joking aside, like I say it all the time, but like my next door neighbor could be like an axe murderer, and I wouldn't even know, because I just like to chill. Like, I don't think it's anyone's business. Now, there are certain things that I do believe should be out in the open, but I've never subscribed to that notion, like, oh well, you shouldn't hide. If you want privacy, that means you're trying to hide something. Maybe it's just that it's none of your business. Like, who gets to be the gatekeeper of that, right? Like, okay, well, the government. Well, you're an elected official, so like, why? Like America, we went, but like when 9/11 happened, they were spying on our own citizens. Like, before that, that was never a thing. And now it's like, well, we need to know this information. Well, why? Like, why did this all switch? Because if you want to use that for some sort of like vantage point, like the attack didn't even happen from an American on American soil. So I don't subscribe to that anyhow. So like, the way I've always been, I mean, I like the blockchain because it is transparent, and I got into this space being like a tax accountant, that all blockchains are is a decentralized accounting ledger that you build cool shit on it anyhow. However, I don't think that some person just decides, like, you know what, well, we want to know that wallet, who that is, where this is going and that's going, and we want to know, like, well, they sent it to this wallet, who's that, where's their address, like, where do they live at. Like, I don't really know if that should be a thing. Now, on a centralized exchange, when you bring it back to fiat, then yeah, if someone wants to go down that rabbit hole, then let them go down the rabbit hole. I kind of subscribe to the exact same notion that is it Vikram? I think it's Vikram. I'll just call him V for now, just so I don't say it wrong. But what V was saying about, like, it's there for them so they can go do the work. I don't think we should make it easier for anyone, to be honest with you. And that's not to hide anything. It's just that, again, it's our right and it's our privacy. And like, once you start to just subscribe to, like, oh, you know what, don't worry about it, and then you aren't free, and then you become this like nation state that is controlled by someone clicking a button and can just eviscerate everything that you've ever worked for or saved for, and just kind of erase you from the blimp of the planet, and I don't know, like, it's really a tough line in the sand for me.
But it is all about drawing lines. You're right, 100%. And that's what, from Galactica's perspective, especially, we kind of subscribe to the idea that if you have, like, rather than just having some murky government idea, you have a selection as a consumer. You have a selection of decentralized options. You have various blockchains you can use, all of which with various governance options, all this kind of thing. So if basically you build if you build an option that people actually want to use with a level of privacy that they're willing to either take on board and actually and that they're happy with, that we can actually provide something that's useful. So we provide a solution by which you have reputation-based persistent identities. So you exist on chain with a defined reputation based on your history on chain. That's of your accumulated SBTs, your just transaction history. Everything kind of becomes part of this persistent identity of yours. So this persistent identity, though, is completely private, unless through governance procedures, as I mentioned earlier, you end up on the bad end of a regulating body, and then the governance systems of Galactica decide that, yep, that might have been a fraudulent transaction. So unless it becomes that kind of situation, you are completely private as your persistent identity. So that's what we provide. And we believe that's a really good system and a really good starting point, at least. We can't ever claim that it's a perfect system, but it is a really good one in our opinion. So by just giving consumers these options, we believe that the blockchain space itself is a hell of a lot fairer and a hell of a lot more for the consumer than any other option you could get in a regular nation state.
Yeah, and also in terms, sorry, just to add to your point, actually, I have shared a tweet from one of the partners that we are working with. They don't believe on even certificate authority. They said, like, they showed me uh, uh, existing blog post where so many times all these root certificate authority and certificate authorities and even the root uh, authorities have done mistakes, or they say it's a mistake, but technically it was a hack or whatever, miss like changing the information, somebody in the organization changing the information. So the point that you mentioned, right, like, the regulations are in the end by these government bodies. Now they are also elected by, they are also human beings, so there are so many point that uh, whatever they are imposing on us are not right. It could be right or it could be wrong as well. So why we have to follow exactly what they have said? But in the other hand, uh, I know it is a very dystopian probably thought process to believe on community based governance, like Dave was mentioning in Galactica's case. In Galactica's design, uh, many things might be uh, you know built based on community based governance. Now it can be good or bad. It's same as, like, taking decision based on governments, whatever regulations they are talking about. But at least there is a fair chance for consumers to participate in the decision making, although not all type of these models are yet, it's being researched on, and many people are trying in a different way. But I think also for the privacy, it will evolve eventually, and it will become much more stable with help of multiple examples uh, coming up in ecosystem, just like Galactica. Or in case of Hypersign, it's more on a technical side, but in general the idea is that when we are building these protocols, community or the end user should be able to take some decision, even though it's not perfect, but we are taking some small baby steps towards it. And I'm sure over the period of time, let's say in 10 years, we will have a governance system, DAOs, much more stronger. uh, Dave, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more, my friend. I really couldn't. In fact, you were probably more eloquent than I was on that one, so congratulations. Honestly, it really boils down to the fact that, yes, as someone who is looking at protocols which they can use and the fairness, the privacy, all of everything that's entailed within those protocols. With blockchain technology, you can look at the code, or at least pay someone to understand the code for you. You can just get a night. You know the rules. With a centralized system, oftentimes, most of the time, you do not know the rules you are dealing with, and that's the thing. And you often don't have a choice in a centralized system. You know, it's either what you're born into or where you're located, whatever. You don't have a choice. That's the main thing with blockchain. You get that choice. GC, do you have a take on this one just before we move on?
Yeah, so most what I was thinking has been said, but basically, I want to add one thing, which was this argument. I also used to believe in this argument where if you're not doing anything illegal, why should it be even private? And why privacy is important. But then I think this is literally the stupidest argument you think about if you think about it deeply, because if you look at what happened in the Chinese government, where data was compromised, and they have that on all citizens basically. So over 50 million individual citizens' data has been released into the hands of malicious people just because privacy is not important. Or if you see what happened with Cosmos hosts, right? They sent him like a letter which was, oopsie, your data has been compromised. So that's it, and there's no repercussion. So is that what? So is that basically what? What's the opposite of privacy? Basically, what public is all about, or what no privacy is all about. Just people having your data and opening a huge attack exploits due to this. So you don't know what they're going to do with your data, whether it is using it for malicious purposes, which has already been done multiple of times, selling your data to advertisers or other malicious parties, to terrorist parties. You never know. So at least if they want to make everything public, at least hold like responsibility for the data you're holding. But nobody does hold basically data, hold responsibility. So then why should I give you my data and then you don't hold responsibility when they hack my password or my credit card number or my where I live basically? So that's my argument on privacy basically.
Yeah, and it's pretty much aligns with the panel, I think. And what you're talking about is kind of, the ideal of what you're talking about, I suppose, is selective disclosures. So, you know, if your regulatory body wants you, you need to be able to selectively disclose the information that proves you're innocent. You know, that's the kind of ideal. So what I'm just going to do right now, I'm just going to reset the space again, just so everyone who is here has an opportunity. If you could all dive down into the comments, please. Give us a retweet, give us a like if you like what you're hearing. We're trying to be educational here, making sure that you guys get the best information possible on the topics that we have today. So it'd be really appreciative if you just give us a retweet and a like, get this out to more people. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to bring up some community speakers in a little bit. So I'm going to start preparing that now. So if you would like to come up and speak on any of the topics that are being discussed or anything else, to be honest, we're happy to hear your point of view. Just request to speak, and I'm sure Hoss, Jay, if you could deal with that, if you could just get some speakers up here, I'd be really appreciative for that.
Yeah, for sure. And then I was just going to add to GC's point that not too long ago, I got this letter in the mail that was like, hey, sadly, it was some third party that must have handled some sort of credit card in the past, but it was like, I want to say 20 million people or so. But yeah, our information just is out there now because they got hacked, and then all that data that they had, you know, I was one of their people that was in their bucket list or whatever you want to call it. And now that information's out there, and you know, when you go to sign up for a credit card, they pretty much get everything about you. So it's, you know, crypto blockchain's technology can eliminate that at all. Like, you know, if everything was technically on a blockchain, even if someone got in, like say every file had like their own private key or whatever, any sort of way, like hindrance for people to be able to get all that data, then we need to use that technology. And that's kind of what I'm more excited for when it comes to just like the next wave of blockchain. It's not necessarily DeFi as important that, you know, as that is, but I'm more, you know, we kind of touched on it briefly, but like governance, and identity and like just anything really, just giving rights back to people. You know, if you want our data, you need to pay for it. And instead of like all these Web2 companies basically just getting all your data and making billions and billions of dollars off of it, like give the rights back to the people. And you know, I'm just a really big privacy advocate, obviously, but I'm also an advocate for just like choices. So if someone doesn't want to be private, then fine, that's their doing. But there should be choices for everything, and I don't think there's ever just a one shoe fits all for anyone. For example, but I also even like with DeFi, I just like having choices and things that maybe I won't even use it, but I know it's theirs. Maybe someone else wants to use it for whatever reason, and I think that, you know, in order for this space to move forward in every avenue of crypto, there just needs to be choices for everything. And, you know, privacy definitely needs to be a big component of all that, because it is kind of a scary world that, like, I'm looking out right now at the beach and there's like all these people on it just sitting there. And imagine if they knew, like, oh, that dude up there is Cosmos Haas and he owns this and owns that. And then they just go harass you. You know what I mean? Like, that's no one's business. Like, it really is no one's business. And we don't live in a world like that right now. Like if someone, hey, this guy has this much in his bank account, these people don't know that, and we need to get to that point too, even with the blockchain, that, you know, there's got to be some sort of line in the sand that's like, all right, you could, the centralized exchanges may get to know because you're going back to fiat, but other people shouldn't get to know that. Just some random person that's in blockchain shouldn't be able to just follow and stalk your ass because they see, oh, this person has this PFP and it's, you know, maybe they have a Bored Ape and this Bored Ape, and then they just go down that rabbit hole and they find out who you are. It's kind of a scary thing, to be honest with you. I feel like it's not really private, nor is it safe. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in there while we're waiting. But anyone that wanted to come up and ask any questions or comments or whatever, please raise your hand and we'll bring you up, and you can pretty much ask whatever you want. So.
Yeah, so Hoss, I agree. It's really really annoying sometimes that trying to talk about privacy to, you know, the general public, it's almost impossible. It's like such an abstract for a lot of people that they did. It's not that they don't want to understand it. It's just that it's too far out of their wheelhouse. In fact, I actually had another clip. I'll play another clip. This one is from Edward Snowden, of all people. So obviously, big privacy advocate there. So I'll just play that very quickly, and then we will move on to the last topic. I say the last. I'll tell you why in a minute. Just 2 seconds, and we'll play that clip.
That Bitcoin is really bad on privacy. I think the only people who do it worse actually are Ethereum. And that's because they use the account-based model as opposed to the address-based model. But a lot of people only use like one account. So they see it's like as if you were using Bitcoin, you were just reusing the same wallet. You get this giant history cruft that just follows you wherever, and then you create all these chain explorers, and then people see, you know, every smart contract you've interacted with on Ethereum, and it's problematic. Bitcoin suffers from the same thing, but at least largely because there's not as much contract-based activity on Bitcoin. They only see, you know, address A sends to address B and so on. They follow it out. They chart it. They see where it splits on the chain, and then they try to go where it goes back to a common node, or they track spends, or they go where it goes through KYC gateways, and, you know, they find out.
Now, I'll stop it there, but he does go on to say that even using the tools that he had in 2013 when he was a member of the NSA, tracking all of this is child's play, absolute child's play. If you've ever interacted with anything that has anything to do with the real world, they have you. It's as simple as that. They have all your data. So yeah, it's a scary thing to actually think about when you actually discuss it as we are now. But like I say, actually getting that kind of information to the wider audience of Web3, let alone the wider audience of the public in general, it's a difficult task. It really, really is. So I would like to just move on to the last point now. As I say the last point because there were three. I'm going to go with just the two, primarily, partially because of time, but primarily because the last one, which was privacy solutions facing resistance due to illicit activity and narratives like that, I don't personally put any stock in that. So what we'll do is we'll go for the second one, and that is that user experiences for privacy solutions are orders of magnitude worse than the offerings generally available in Web3. And the ones in Web3 are generally terrible. So what do you think we can do as builders and as thought leaders in the space to increase the usability of protocols that involve privacy? Vikram,
Yeah,
actually, I'd be
can I
really
add?
interested in that from your perspective.
So basically, your point is that about why the user experience is so bad in case of privacy protocols, right?
Correct, yeah.
I mean, there is a standard way to look at it is that you have to encrypt and decrypt data. Not decrypt, but at least encrypt and verify. But in that case, you need private keys to encrypt. And it's the same problem, in my opinion, in case of like how user don't understand mnemonics and seed phrases. So it's like accessing blockchain itself is complicated. The user experience is broken. Now we are adding zk on top of that, right? Because that's like the, I mean, it's not that I am against the technology. In fact, I love zk. But what I'm trying to say is that due to the fact that user has to manage mnemonic and seed phrases, that is adding complexity to the privacy protocols as well. That's one. On the other hand, the way the privacy protocols are designed, like the mixers, if you look at, I mean, many people might have other opinion about it. It depends on how the mixers are designed. Like in my last one that I had observed was um, I forgot the name, but basically it depends on the more the number of wallets, wallets are transferring inside the smart contract, the higher the chances that your probability of finding the new wallet that gets the funds out of that protocol is harder. Now in that case, maybe it's like user has to send connect multiple wallets. Like user, at least user needs to add two wallets to that, one to send funds and another one to receive funds. Does it aligns with the question that you asked, Dave? I'm just saying in from the user perspective, like how I participated in that protocol.
Yeah, basically what you're saying is it's bloody complicated, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It asks you to do so many things together. I mean, there like so many steps in order to make your transaction private. It also doesn't guarantee you that the transactions will be private, because it depends on the total number of user participating in the privacy protocol at that certain period of time. Like how much liquidity is inside, not just the amount of liquidity, but also the number of wallets participating. So your transaction can be hidden in that pool somehow. And this complicates for an end user. Like I don't see any end user using these protocols at all. It will be, right now institutions are only were using, like all the uh, probably scammers, hackers, or even for security reasons, sometimes we rotate keys. And internally in the application, many of projects that I know, they were using mixers until all these bans started coming in. But what I can say is that for end user, I don't see it was any good. You had to be really technical to use them. So if Galactica is coming up with something much more simpler, would be amazing. I really feel that zk proofs can solve this, because you can abstract the rules and then generate a proof prior to user interacting with the system. So when user onboarding is happening, we could technically do some rules, implement rules, and then generate proof and store it in the user's mobile wallet. Now next time whenever user is participating with the protocol, we already have the proof. So it is just like one click thing and it verifies, and they get the work done. I don't know, this will be a much better user experience probably,
Well,
right,
that's
Dave?
actually, I mean, you almost described our goal. So with Galactica and our onboarding, we're trying to make it as simple as humanly possible, given the technologies involved. So essentially, to become a citizen within Galactica Network, which is a whole concept in and of itself, which I won't get into too much, you need to basically hold an SBT in your wallet, which represents your passport. So your passport represents your citizenship, and this allows you to interact with Galactica at the most in the most complete way. So obviously, Galactica is a public ledger. It's a public network. You can use it without being a citizen, anything like that. It's still fast. It's still scalable. Still secure. It's just for the regulatory compliance, for using restricted liquidity pools, for doing all the incredible, absolutely insane social DAO stuff that you can do using the Galactica Network protocol. You need to be a citizen. Basically, we are trying to allow users, we're just trying to allow them the space to get to have, sorry, you know what? My thoughts have become disorganized and I do apologize. The actual point is that, like I say, the user experience is designed to go from going onto the passport website, then basically creating your initial passport SBT using that website, and then you can this initial interaction, and this is all through MetaMask. So MetaMask with one of the experimental extensions installed. So that would be MetaMask Flask, which is the development version, and then MetaMask Snap, which is the extension, which allows you to keep your ZK proofs inside your wallet. So you have complete custody of your data and of your ZK proofs, and then you can selectively disclose those ZK proofs to anyone on the network for all the reasons that I described before. So that's pretty much our goal, and we're trying to make that as streamlined as humanly possible. Like I say, it's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it is going to be very, very good by any modern blockchain standard. I think it will go above and beyond and exceed the normal standards for that. Apologies.
Sounds amazing. Actually, I would love to, try out the SDK or if it is open source. I will ask my devs to, try out and see if we could integrate the IDs into Galactica's SDK or, other way around. We are actually looking into providing support for ZK. So we had looked at Polygon ID. Mostly the ZK engine that they have. My technical ability is very less in this regard. So I forgot the name of the SDK. Oh, now I think I remember. IDEN 3 is the protocol that Polygon ID is using. So we were looking at it, but still we are yet not confirmed what we are going to use. So if Galactica has something interesting we could integrate, would love to, see.
Yeah, we definitely need to have a conversation, mate, for sure. I'm sure we can have that conversation. It'll be a really good one. Okay. Right. Wow. So we basically just have the issues of UX design and privacy solutions, guys. So Hoss, if you have Jay, sorry, if you have a take on it, please. If we have anyone who wants to come up and speak, please just request to speak. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up this space pretty soon. Last chance to basically come up and speak and give your opinion. We'd be happy to hear it. Hoss?
No, before when Vikram was speaking, I totally agree with pretty much everything he said. And having one-click transactions not even just privacy, but just in general is the way to be, And I know what you guys were touching on with privacy solutions before was, really hard to use. And for someone like myself, being in the space all the time, devoting 12, 15 hours a day in it, and I found some of them, even including I'm a real big secret network fan, and it's way better than it was. But like initially, a couple of years ago, it was more difficult to use. And but I think having one-click transactions and utilize the ZKs for different things is going to be very essential and future-proof as well. And I'm looking forward to that part of it. And one of the reasons I invited him to come on the show is because I do think there's some synergies between what they're doing and what Galactica is doing, and might as well, right? And it's like mash two brains together and create something useful and productive in this space. And just like touching on that is just I'm really looking forward to that part of crypto, because I look around just traditionally, even in America, and I don't really know necessarily too much about other countries when it comes to politics and governance and things of that nature. But I know in America, we like to think we're pretty good at everything, and I can tell you, governance in America is just poor. It's very poor. It's almost like looking back and thinking about we're in 2023, but when it comes to voting and even just presidential elections, I almost feel like when I go to vote that it's like 1950 and technology doesn't even exist. We're going there like, hey, Republicans go on this side, Democrats go on this side, and then you go there and you don't even have any sort of identity. I could just say whoever I am or just make up something, and you're voting on a piece of paper. It's like, what are we doing right now? And I think crypto is an avenue for nearly every aspect of just things in the real life. And governance can substantially improve, identities can substantially improve. Like when you're younger and you go to like a bar and there's like a bouncer and they're like, hey, give me your ID. Why should that individual get to see like where you're born and where you're raised at, what color your eyes are, what size you are? It should just be able to you get some sort of identity or something that just shows, okay, this individual is 21 or older. Like that's all you need. They don't need to know all this other stuff. And I think crypto can, obviously do that as well. It's like you can just prove whatever sort of niche that you're trying to prove. And that's kind of why I really like the whole premise of ZK certificates. And it's like, hey, yeah, I got this degree for this CS degree from this university, but you don't need to necessarily know which year I graduated from or all this other stuff. Because I know I had a problem years ago when I graduated, and then it was really tough to get jobs because it was right around the 08-09 crisis. That's full disclosure when I graduated college. So it was really tough. It was like you were either underqualified or overqualified for everything. And then afterwards, you got to this point where it was like years later, well, your experience doesn't really count for what we're trying to do. We'd rather get some kid that just graduated college, and it like all that shit shouldn't matter. And I think crypto can just really drastically improve nearly every aspect of our life when it comes to like human. I don't want to say human greed, but just human decision making that can really be altered by just like random things, like where you're from or what school you went to, or your background and things of that nature. And I'm all for it. Like I used to be like kind of anti technology, like replacing human decision making, but I mean it's been kind of in my lifetime. It's been shown that not that you can't trust all humans, but the less is more with that when it comes to even just getting loan applications and all that. Like I'm all for crypto.
I don't think
I'm
it needs to
really
replace human decision making. I think it needs to replace human infrastructure. So like
Totally.
any contract layer, any contract, any governance, and any financial layer, all of it can be replaced with blockchain and be 10 times more efficient and far more transparent. Thank you for your opinion, Jay. It's always valuable, man. So we've got Arnold, who's just jumped up as a speaker. So if you have a take, Arnold, please, man, just give us a shot.
Yeah, I was just watching. Thanks, guys. Appreciate all the info. It's very interesting and relevant and significant. Having my family actually come to America, I'm first generation here, and escaping communism where, there's dictator rule and you don't have freedom, you don't have identity. It's just everything's kind of ruled by the state. So to me, this is also refreshing because it hits really home. But one of the things I was looking at that was trending on Twitter a bit, it was just there was this graphic thrown up, and it was after one of the Ethereum hacks. Basically, you're showing like, hey, guess what? Here's the accounts model, and here's all the different protocols that go ahead and use accounts-based model. And then it showed Cardano on the other side using the UTXO, and it actually had Cosmos on the accounts model side. From what I understand, it's the Ignite, I believe, the Byzantine fault tolerance consensus mechanism. I was thinking, like, there's some information floating out there. It's really tying Cosmos ecosystem to a lot of these projects that are hack prone, and I thought, that seems quite a bit of misinformation. So the Byzantine fault tolerance would be different than the accounts model, or just if we could have just a little bit of clarity, and then it'd be good because I'm going to go out there and also be tossing around some clarity how the group in Cosmos has, but as the consensus mechanism, I think it differs than the accounts model. Is that correct?
Just with my little bit of knowledge around on this, BFT is the consensus model. Now, accounts are different. Like accounts can be in Cosmos chains, Cosmos based, like SDK based chain, or it can be on Ethereum. But so you are trying to compare apples with orange. Sorry, Arnold, to be straightforward, it's a little bit technical. So it can be like, how maths is either 0 or 1. So same thing here. Account based model, if you want to compare uh, with that, then you should compare it with Bitcoins, UTXO, which is like wallet based. I think Dave has much more idea about UTXO than me. uh, so that's like the right comparison. Now BFT is the consensus engine. You can compare BFT with proof of work, because BFT, oh sorry, if I Dave, am I saying it right? I think uh, Byzantine fault tolerant is also not, is part of the consensus, but also not the consensus itself. The consensus is proof of stake, and BFT is just part of the whole consensus thing. But you should not compare it with account based model, because that is more rightly compared it with either account based model or UTXOs.
Yeah.
If I am Dave, maybe you can pitch in.
Unfortunately, my friend, I am not actually the most technical person in the world. I have a pretty decent understanding. As far as I'm aware, that the BFT is the like the
Consensus.
you could assume that it's the methodology, and the consensus mechanism is the consensus mechanism. It's stake work, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's what I was pointing out, is I think they wrongfully grouped Cosmos with all these other projects that are building on top of, or even other projects within the top 100 that are having an accounts based model. I think they may have put Algorand in there as well. So I was just saying, I believe that Cosmos is different, is separate than the accounts based model consensus mechanism. So I believe it was a wrongful it was a misrepresentation of Cosmos, and it got grouped wrongfully. And I was like, hey, wait, hold on a second, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't look right. And I think people get the wrong idea. Cosmos is built on. I'm sorry to say, Galactica is built off of Cosmos platform, so to speak, the IBC. And so I was just like, hey, this is something that's going around, circulating. People are making comments, and I'm thinking, no, that's not accurate. That's not right. And I don't want Galactica to be viewed as or misunderstood as being part of or falling in that line where, oh, this is a very hackable type of consensus mechanism. And in fact, we have something different that is definitely far more secure and significantly better than an accounts-based model. consensus mechanism.
Oh, so in that case, you are right. Actually, depends on DPoS. It's called delegated proof of stake. In I mean, I exactly, if Galactica is also built on Cosmos SDK, then we all are using DPoS. In DPoS, we have it's little bit less decentralized way of bootstrapping a chain, meaning that you have to choose the first initial set of validators. So whenever any of these chain goes live in Cosmos ecosystem, prior to the for the chain to go live, they choose the validator. Now, the point why, in my opinion, if you look at technically, the chain runs on two things, not just the algorithm the algorithm being best doesn't work out of the box. It needs like the right set of people running the nodes. uh, be, and in that case, I personally, maybe I'm biased toward Cosmos, but what I can tell you is that the most of the initial set of validators that in Cosmos ecosystem we choose based on three factors. One is that either they are good developers, like they can do debugging really fast, and they have participated in other chains. Second, or they are institutional, so probably they can help in bringing liquidity or something like that. And or the third one, they are good DevOps people, like they have been running chains, bringing uptime of the nodes, uh, you know being good in other ecosystem. So these are three factors that you can choose of. But imagine that it's a pure proof of stake where anyone can connect any number of nodes. Then you don't have, at least in the initial bootstrapping phase, you don't have control of the chain. So there is higher chances that these can be malicious, actors can participate. But in case of Cosmos SDK, you bootstrap based on the DPoS. So you have at least the first 100 validators that you can choose, which are good people, based on, definitely you can choose based on community voting, but you can divide them in the right uh, ratios that you want, like the 3 points that I said before. I think this is the main reason why Cosmos chains are more stable, in my opinion. And the second is that the problems that whatever happens with your chain, or like the new chain that have come up, validators and the developers already know this problem exist in previous some other project, so resolution is very fast. And that way, the second problem, that is like the account problem that you're talking about, it's mostly related with the bridges hacks, like in Ethereum EVM ecosystem, not exactly Ethereum, but so many chains coming up with EVM compatibility, and they try to bridge the liquidity via some bridges on Ethereum. And most of these design of these bridges are not so good, because they lock liquidity in one single pool. And for hackers, it's like um, like sitting duck that anyone can shoot. So sorry, that's a very wrong example, but but what I'm trying to say is that the design of the bridges did not work. But in case of Cosmos SDK, since the bridge which you talked about, IBC, is natively compatible, and there is no need of locking liquidity on any side of the chain. If any side of the bridge, if you are moving from chain A to chain B, so this gives like the second layer of security for developers. That first is that choosing the right validators set, so initial bootstrap phase is smooth and chain is launched properly. And the second one is when you want to do cross chain communication, so you can use a much more secure bridge, which is the IBC. So I was just speaking from a technical side, but you are right, Arnold.
Yeah, good. No, that's what I was looking for, because I wanted to make sure it was understood to people in that I interact with, that there is certainly differentiating factors between Ethereum and Ethereum-like account-based model protocols and Cosmos, which Galactica would also be, if you will, based off of. So, yeah, I just want to make sure, hey, Look, you guys are different. We're not like you. Don't put us in that group or that category. We're not the same as all you guys. So I just want to make sure, as a Twitter space, they like to throw a lot of things out there, and I was like, wrong graphics, wrong association. We are different.
Amazing stuff, guys. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for answering Vikram so completely, and for Arnold for asking the question. It's always good to get to the bottom of this kind of thing from a technical standpoint. So we've had one really cool comment in the comment section from Anubis, who is now a speaker. Anubis, if you have a take, please give it to us. After that, I think we're going to slowly wind down. And so Anubis, if you have a take, please.
Yeah, hey guys, Anubis here. Been listening and really enjoying the conversation here. So just about myself, I work with Secret Network, the secret agency, but I also play around with privacy projects in Web3 across the board. So I definitely play with the ZK EDMs, Monero, and everything I can get my hands on, really. And so I just wanted to just point out that I think my take is that there is no one technology stack in the privacy and Web3 sector that's gonna cover all angles. Basically, there's no silver bullet that's gonna cover everything. But I think that the ability to blend multiple technologies together is going to be where we actually get some real digital ownership and self-sovereignty. A lot of us, at least myself, when I first started in Web3 in crypto, I came in with my understanding was that pseudo anonymity was privacy. So I had that misconception that the crypto was basically private money. Now, I, like most of the people listening, understand that's not really the case. Pseudo anonymity is not privacy. But one of the superpowers of Cosmos is the interoperability aspect. And that's something that Secret Network really shines in. We try to collaborate and integrate as many tech stacks as possible. Now, I know that ZK was something that was spoken on here, and ZK is very, very valuable in certain aspects, and then not quite as valuable in other aspects as maybe others. Like, for example, ZK is great for something like where there's two parties involved. Just for an example, most people can understand. Zcash uses a form of zero knowledge called bulletproofs, and it's one of the most secure privacy platforms when it comes to transactional privacy, as in I'm sending money to you. And that's between two people. And it's because of the fact that it is only two people. Now, when you it gets a little more complicated, actually a lot more complicated, when you come into something like DeFi. For example, making a full suite of DeFi tools like a DEX, and especially if you want to add anything advanced like limit orders and such. The more parties that get involved, the more complicated that becomes. So that's when we start to want to look at other tech stacks, such as trusted execution environments and secure enclaves, which is what Secret Network uses. And then also ZK is very, very good for scaling. And so what I hope to see primarily is I would hope that multiple these networks in the Cosmos will kind of come together, use that superpower of interoperability that we have, and give people the tools they need for whatever it is they're doing. I know one of the topics on this space, there's privacy and compliance. So it's important as a human right. Privacy is foundational. I don't, in my opinion, there can be no freedom without privacy. There's no self sovereignty without privacy. And it bugs me whenever I hear someone say, "Well, I have nothing to hide, so why do I need privacy?" That's dumb. I like to ask that person if they close the door when they go to the bathroom. If the answer is yes, then they care about privacy, right? Um, but there is the question of compliance, and it is an important one. So the technologies, it's important to have an ability to be compliant, and I think that ability needs to be user controlled. So one of the technologies that's used, well, in Secret Network, we call them viewing keys and permits. So a user is able to generate a key that they can share, say with their CPA, so that their CPA can then verify that their tax information is correct. That way, the user can be compliant, but then they can then turn off that viewing key when the CPA is done, and disallow that CPA from viewing their transaction history and future in perpetuity. So I think that's going to be one of the most important aspects to really focus on, regardless of which technology you're going for, whether it's ZK or not. Just the ability to prove when you need to, that what you say is true, but also just by default have the have privacy in place. So if we can give people the tools to share what they want when they want and not force them to be radically transparent, I think that's how Web3 wins.
That was an extremely good take, man. I'm not sure if anyone can actually hear me right now. 2 seconds.
And I'm sure, like the other speaker was saying, it will be mix of different technologies altogether. uh, for example, in case of and the best part in Cosmos ecosystem is that, you know we can actually share technologies on a protocol level using the IBC bridge, because that's the benefit that these Cosmos chains have. And it's just a matter of fact to matter of time that tech developers would try to, or will, they are already working on it. It's just a matter of time when you would see examples. For example, I can take an example of hypersign. We have, what we are looking at is like how to make DIDs interoperable uh, on the IBC bridge. And technically what it helps is that if there is a user verified signature on these DIDs, then if there is any sort of document, whether it's a ZK proofs or it is normal credentials, or any arbitrary data, can be verified cross chain and not based on centralized uh, Oracle. Oracle's actually centralizes the design, right, which IBC is very beautifully built. And essentially, if if the DIDs are able to move on this IVC bridge, then we will be able to use, like, for example, ZK on Galactica, and some encryption on secret network. So I mean, this is how we are thinking from our uh, technology standpoint. So definitely aligns on all the points that. Um, Sorry, I don't know your name, but I have actually done.
Anubis.
Sorry,
It's Anubis.
Anubis. Yes, totally. Actually, align with all the points that you suggested, and I think in Cosmos, it makes the whole ecosystem very strong compared to
Hmm.
other. I know people think strong means more liquidity. That's wrong in my opinion. I feel strong means how much interoperable you are and how many types of use cases the technology can cater in the real world, which I feel Cosmos is very much. As a community and as an ecosystem, we are all free to do the governance. Each product projects have their own governance model, but then somehow they are interoperable, which is a very
Hmm.
strong point, right? No other ecosystem are tightly knit like this, and still working freely, you know so definitely
Yeah, 100%.
aligns with all your points.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why
Yeah,
Galactica Network actually started building on Cosmos. It's one of the primary ones is interoperability. So yeah, we're really looking forward to making absolute best use of that. The one thing I will say is that the interoperability on Cosmos is absolutely fantastic, but we do believe that Galactica can stand as a much more complete base layer for compliant privacy and for reputation-based persistent identities. For that kind of thing, it's just a platform that's designed from the ground up as an L1 to facilitate all this, rather than having to have 5,000 different components all built to try and do various aspects of what we're trying to build. We build it into the base layer, and then everyone else can build around that, and we can use the IBC to maybe export reputation, to utilize DIDs and everything else that's been in this conversation. So yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic, guys.
and that's why I say interoperability is the superpower in Cosmos, because each project can make their specific use case built into the layer one, and they can focus all their energy and all their resource on that, and then the next project over here can focus on theirs, and then we can just go ahead and blend them together. And with the onset of interchain contracts, making IBC able to bridge more than just tokens, but arbitrary data, it makes that blending very, very powerful. So I really look forward to seeing more, more and more projects tying their superpowers together, and see what the Cosmos can really become. I think it's a very, very powerful narrative.
I completely agree, my friends. Right then, guys. So I'm going to call this the end of the space for the time being. I just want to say thank you so very much, especially to our speakers who have come up and shared their opinions. It's always so valuable. To our listeners for staying with us and hopefully learning something. It's really good to see you guys. I'll just ask you guys if you want to see something just provided by Galactica Network. We've just pinned a tweet at the top there. I believe that's to one of our YouTube shorts. It's just a general description of what we do. We've also got, if you could just jump down into the comment section of this tweet and just give us a retweet, a like, perhaps a comment. It'd be really helpful just to get our reach out a bit more, see if we can educate some more people, because obviously that's the goal of this podcast, is to get valuable information out to the right people. And that's end of and done. We are obviously an L1 protocol that's only just launching. We are obviously have our own agenda. We're trying to get our brand out there, but we are trying to educate. So it would be really appreciated if you could give us a like and a retweet. So I'll just
Can
want
you
to
guys
say,
hear me?
yeah, we can hear you, Cosmos. You okay? Can you hear us? I think
I can hear
Cosmos
the
may have.
bird.
I think Cosmos may have rugged.
Yeah, I'm getting rugged here. My internet keeps going in and out. I'm on vacation, so I'm losing connection. I couldn't even hear a new biz the whole time. I lost connection, came back on. He's probably talking the whole time. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to
he
say I
actually
can't hear
had some,
anyone, but
he
I
had
think
some
we're
really good
wrapping it
points.
up. I don't know if Dave has any last thoughts or whatnot, but
Yes. So
I
what
don't
I'm
even
just
know if
going to
Dave can
do,
hear me.
I'm just going to mute Hoss just because he's, I think he's, I think he's rugging a bit there. If any of our speakers has any final words, please do, and then we'll wrap up. If not,
Just
no
want to
worries.
say thank you, everyone, for staying back.
Yeah, man, you did real good. You killed it. Good job. We'll keep in
Thank
touch.
you.
Definitely,
Thank you, Vikram.
when I get back, I'm gonna reach out so we can maybe hop on a call, see how you're doing with everything. But it seems like you got your head on your shoulder, so congrats.
Just wanted to say thanks for having me up, guys. Looking forward to learning more about your project, and look forward to more in the future.
Oh, there'll be a lot more. There'll be a lot more. It's going to be an interesting ride. I promise you that. So I'll just remind you guys, if you can check out the Galactica Network website, it would be greatly appreciated as well. There is a section down the bottom of the webpage to join the email list for a newsletter. That will be the first place you get any information about Galactica Network, including any income incentives, everything. If you
Is Dave speaking?
Yes, I am speaking. Can you not hear me? Huh. Can anyone hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think Haas is having maybe some network issues or something.
Yep. It's just a bit confusing there, isn't it? So guys, don't forget to stop by our speakers' socials. I'm sure they have all the relevant links to their projects in their accounts. So if you can just drop by them and show them some love, that would be absolutely amazing. And don't forget to drop that like on the space. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Into the Cypher State. And we will see you next time. We are just going to fade out, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you very much for showing up.
Thanks, Ned. Appreciate it, man.